I am recording a reading of the Panagraph article titled Early African American Doctor Faced Segregated Twin Cities. African American physician Eugene G. Covington came to Bloomington about 1900 to open a medical practice. This being 35 years after the end of the Civil War, one would think things were getting better for African Americans, at least in the North. Unfortunately, that was not the case in Bloomington Normal, where Black residents faced increased segregation and discrimination. By the 1890s, to cite several representative examples, African Americans could not stay at Bloomington hotels. And if they wanted to attend a local theater, they had to sit in the back rows. And in 1908, Bloomington Park commissioners decided to establish segregated beaches and changing rooms at Miller Park. The Springfield race riot of 1908 and a far bloodier race war in Chicago during the summer of 1919 cast a further pallor over any attempts to halt deteriorating race relations in Bloomington Normal. In the early 1920s, a resurgent Ku Klux Klan and its call for pure Americanism and white supremacy enjoyed wide support in McLean County. There were Klan parades in downtown Bloomington and rallies along Jersey Avenue. And by the 1920s, downtown Bloomington restaurants began refusing service to African Americans. In addition to these humiliating and petty and decidedly un-American discrimination and segregation practices, African Americans were barred from most professional employment opportunities. For example, Black students could attend Illinois State Normal University and earn teaching degrees and certificates, but local public schools declined to hire them. Given this pervasive environment of fear and hate, how else should one describe it? It's not surprising that Covington was the only African American doctor to work in McLean County until the 1930s. Born on August 1st, 1872, in Rappahannock County, Virginia, to former slave parents, Covington exhibited a sharp intellect from an early age. He eventually graduated from Howard University, a historically Black school in the nation's capital. In 1902, 2 years after Covington arrived in Bloomington, he married Alice Elena Lewis from the upstate New York community of Oswego. They eventually settled into a cozy residence at 410 East Market Street and raised a family with 3 boys surviving into adulthood. Covington expressed his frustration with the increasingly ugly racial climate in Bloomington Normal with a lengthy guest column in the March 7, 1903 Panagraph. In this essay, titled The Race Question, he took the opportunity to criticize a local member of the Board of Education for demanding that African Americans do something to warrant and inspire respect. Covington found such complaints disingenuous, given the pervasive discrimination faced by Blacks. "We are told not to apply for positions as teachers," he said by way of example, "and yet the gentleman says we must do something to merit respect." In fact, Covington was acutely aware of the issue of respect, or rather the lack thereof. Both Eugene and Alice refused to attend the theater in Bloomington Normal due to the humiliation of segregated seating arrangements. Although he earned a reputation for his civil rights advocacy, Covington was first and foremost a respected physician and surgeon. In addition to his family practice, he was a member of the St. Joseph's Hospital staff and had full privileges at Mennonite Hospital. St. Joseph's admission records show that Covington treated most Black patients for everything from nervous prostration to influenza. As a rule, a white physician had to be in attendance when Covington performed surgeries. Yet, on occasion, it appears as if Covington was the only physician in the operating room, as was the case in late February 1913, when he performed a successful appendectomy on a 23-year-old African American. In February 1908, Covington complained to the McLean County Medical Society that some white doctors were undercharging African American patients who could afford to pay the full standard rate of $2 for house calls. Covington said such undercutting put an undue burden on his practice, since the majority of his patients were Black. The society agreed with Covington, calling undercharging an infraction of professional honor. For African Americans in the early 20th century, Central Illinois certainly offered brighter opportunities, socially, politically, and economically, than the Deep South. That said, segregation of downtown Bloomington hotels, restaurants, and theaters, as well as Miller Park beaches, continued into the 1960s, and major Twin City employers didn't begin to hire Black professionals until the late 1960s.